All right. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening to those in the US of A. My name is Michael from Ocean Geographic, and welcome to our World Ocean Week live session of Heroes of the Sylvia Earle. The Sylvia Earle is a brand new expedition ship built by Aurora Expedition of Australia. My personal expedition, my favorite expedition company to the polar region, and we have used Aurora for two of our expedition to the Antarctic and Arctic in 2010 and 2015. Now to tell us more about these fabulous, amazing ships and also the awesomeness and inspiring heroes of the Sylvia Earle is Monique Pomfret, the CEO of Aurora Expedition. Monique?
Thank you so much, Michael. That was such a lovely introduction. It's my absolute pleasure to be here today to celebrate Ocean Week 2021. We here at Aurora Expeditions, we're a small ship expedition company, as Michael just mentioned, and we travel to some of the most remote and fragile places on Earth, including a network of marine protected areas and hope spots. And we are committed to preserving the beauty of the ocean and everything that Mother Nature possesses. The newest ship of our fleet pays tribute to an incredible hero of the planet, Dr. Sylvia Earle. But it's more than just a namesake. The Sylvia Earle is an ambassador for the ongoing protection of the planet and a base camp sanctuary for our expeditions. We have dedicated each deck and theming of our new ship to honour accomplished champions of conservation, and we also recognise the importance of the future generation in also honouring two incredibly inspiring young conservationists. And now to introduce you all to that distinguished panel of truly global conservationists, heroes of Sylvia Earle, each of whom does extraordinary work in their own right and collectively help to make the world a better place. Dr. Sylvia Earle is an oceanographer, marine biologist, and a true explorer. The first female chief scientist of the US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and Times Magazine's first hero for the planet, and she certainly is. Her conservation initiative, Mission Blue, is creating a global network of marine protected areas known as hope spots. Sylvia today joins us from California. We have Joe Ruxton, a tireless plastic pollution campaigner with an award-winning film, A Plastic Ocean. Joe founded Plastic Oceans UK, now known as Ocean Generation, with the goal of inspiring an inclusive global movement to restore a sustainable relationship between humanity and the ocean. Joe joins us today from the UK. We have Bernadette Dimitrieff, a passionate advocate for the rights of Indigenous Gitchwich people of Northeast Alaska and Northwest Canada. She works tirelessly to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge from destruction by oil and gas companies. Bernadette today joins us from Alaska. Then we have Dr. Carden Wallace, a member of the Order of Australia and Principal Scientist Emeritus at the Queensland Museum. An expert on coral reefs, she was part of the team that discovered the mass spawning of coral in 1984. Carden joined us today from Queensland. Sharon Kwok, artist, actress, and wildlife conservationist. She is the co-founder and executive director of the Aquameridian Conservation and Education Foundation, which aims to change mindsets about endangered wildlife and enable sustainable living through creative, cross-cultural programs. Sharon today joins us from Hong Kong. Young conservationist Dr. Asha DeVos marine biologist, ocean educator, and pioneer of blue whale research in the Northern Indian Ocean. She is the founder of Ocean Swell, Sri Lanka's first marine conservation, research and education organisation. She was named one of the 100 most inspirational and influential women in the world by BBC. Asha today joins us from Sri Lanka. And then we have young conservationist Hanley Prinsloo. She's a champion freediver, founder and executive director of I Am Water, an ocean conservation foundation based in Cape Town, South Africa. I Am Water helps children in underserved communities to experience the transformative beauty of the ocean for the first time. Hanley today joins us from South Africa. A very warm welcome to you all and to everyone joining us today. And Michael, now over to you.
Thank you, Monique. Thank you so much for the introductions. And now our beautiful ladies, science editor of Ocean Geographic, will introduce the session and start the session with Cherie. Thank you.
All right, well, this is going to be an exciting one. So, of course, we are slightly past World Oceans Day now, but we are heartily within World Oceans Week. So seems like a perfect time to be doing this. We are really excited from the standpoint of Ocean Geographic to be working with Aurora Expeditions to help make a bit of a splash with this ship. It's very exciting. And your commitment to promoting female conservationists around the world in such a unique way is really exciting, and we're very happy to be part of it. And it's great to have everybody with us today. We're coming to you from a lot of different time zones. So forgive any of us if we're sleepy because we've just woken up or are just going to bed. But it is great to all be as together as we're going to be, considering how many different places we are. It's my pleasure to have us start off this session with hopefully some words from Dr. Earle, because she's always the person that we love starting with. So thank you so much for making the time to join us today. And yeah, welcome. So you've now got a ship named after you. Did you ever think that was going to happen? Oh, hold on. Sylvia's on mute. Hold on.
Yeah, I've just asked her to unmute.
Not in my wildest dreams.
Sylvia, you're in orange today. Yes.
How about it?
Hey, that is coral, I'll have you know. All right.
One of the many shades of orange.
There you go.
So thank you, Michael. Thank you, all associated with Aurora, and for the women who have agreed to dive in and lend your voice, lend your ethic to this mission of caring. Human beings have demonstrated over many thousands of years the ability to consume the natural world. We're really good at transforming forests, rivers, land, ocean into products, into what we consider to be things useful to our existence. It's only right about now that it's beginning to dawn on allegedly intelligent human beings that there are limits to what we can take, limits to what we can convert from the natural systems and still have a planet that works in our favor. We've taken so much for granted for so long that it's a hard habit to break. But I'm most optimistic because the kids of today have grown up entirely in the Anthropocene. Anyone born after 1950 has lived a lifetime in a new geological geological age defined by our geological imprint on the natural world. There's a standard you have to meet in order to be regarded as a different geological epoch. And guess what? We're there and we're responsible. The mark is defined initially by the explosion of nuclear tests in the South Pacific that left elements that are written in rock, written in stone all over the world, the fallout from those nuclear tests in the 1950s. But there's much more. We every day live in such a way that we're drawing on chemicals that have been synthesized that do not occur in nature. Many of them occur in plastics, but that's just the beginning. I mean, they're just in our own bodies, in the air, in the water. We have done a pretty good job of beginning to transform the nature of nature. And nature needs a voice. And I think that you, all of us, can be a voice for those who have no voice, not just creatures in the sea, but all of those who are yet to come along, the children of tomorrow, as well as the children of today. But it's my hope that we will enlist some of those kids of today who are armed with this superpower of knowledge, of knowing what I did not and could not know, because the knowledge wasn't there when I was a kid. It just didn't exist. How deep is the ocean? What does Earth look like from space? The capacity to access and document, record, gather evidence, and maybe most importantly, to begin to pull it all together, to look at patterns, to see concepts. It wasn't very long ago that if somebody discovered something and wanted to share it, you could write about it and it might be published in a year or 2 or 5 and might be accessed by scientists or others, policymakers, kids, adult, anybody. But it would take a long time to get that enough of this information and what it means to us and to the future. So I consider myself, and you should consider yourselves, really lucky to have come along at just the right time to not only benefit from all this new knowledge that has been accumulating in the 20th century, but to know what it means to be able to crunch the numbers, to look at the photographs, put together the pieces of the puzzle that no one could do before. And the kids are growing up in the midst of this exciting new time of discovery, not just new facts and figures, but discovering who we are and where we've come from to some extent. And maybe most importantly, how can we take what we now know and go forward armed with knowledge that could not exist before? This is the best time ever. If you have somehow in your heart a desire to make the world a better place, an enduring place for our species, we know how to not make the world a place that will be suitable for us. We've been doing a really good job of undermining our life support system. The expeditions that can be carried out aboard this ship, of course, to polar regions, but globally, I think will underscore how fast the world is changing owing to us. And also what we can do now, especially most critically in the next 10 years. We've got this window of opportunity. It's really a time, the optimal time in all of history for hope, because before we didn't know. We don't have an excuse anymore. The knowledge is there and it is being communicated. But what we still lack, and what I think your voices and the opportunity to take people to places and subject them to experiences that will do more than almost any other means of communicating the nature of not only the fix we are now experiencing, melting polar ice, the decline of the diversity of life, the pollution that we can witness everywhere in the ocean. We have the ability, with a captive audience, taking to great places, to convey the urgency and the joy of making a difference while there's still time, and not to give up on saying, oh, it's too late. We can't, I'm just one person, I can't make a difference. And realizing that, yes, if you take that attitude, you're one person and you do nothing, you are making a difference. Your neglect is part of the problem. Your indifference, your complacency, that's part of the problem. We need to convert those who aren't on board for positive energy and doing what they can with the power they have. Well, all that is directed toward, why I'm excited about what can be achieved, not just with the Sylvia Earle vessel and you with all your names as heroes that I think really in itself conveys power and examples. People who say, I'm just one person, I don't know what to do. You can look at you're just one individual too, and look at what you're doing. I mean, that I think conveys a message of get off your butt. Did I say that? I really mean it. Don't think that that you're powerless. There's never been a generation with more power than the people who are alive right now in all of history. What's not to love about that? So I am really honored to be among you, honored to have my name on a ship of hope that is going to sail from one end of the world to the other and make waves along the way. So I'm really eager to hear from each of you. Is that the goal, Michael?
Yes.
Alex?
That is indeed the goal.
Absolutely.
To hear from all these wonderful people.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Yeah.
I like it. Ship of Hope. Thank you so much, Sylvia.
That is the perfect tagline.
Absolutely.
A ship of hope.
And we've got people from all over the world who are listening and who are joining us. So we've got people from Sabah, from Sydney, from Japan, which I think is a testament to all of the amazing work that you ladies have achieved. And I think I'm, feel incredibly honored just to sit here and ask you some questions. But Sylvia, I'm just going to quickly circle back to you, if that's okay, quickly. We talk about the importance of getting more women in positions of power and leadership, and especially when it comes to science. I'm interested to know how hard was it for you? You were an absolute trailblazer in your field. How difficult was it to battle the stereotypes for females, engaging in science?
I don't know where it struck me, but somewhere along the line, I realized that it takes the greatest possible diversity for our society, our civilization to function. And look in the mirror and see who you are to you, and realize that there will be people, no matter what you try to do. There are people who say, you're too old, you're too young, you're too tall, you're too short. You come from this country, you come from that country, your skin is this color, your skin is that color. All the reasons you can think of why you cannot do what your heart says, I must do this. I must write, I must sing, I must be a scientist. I just have to do this. I just have to. It's what I am. It's who I am. If you let others tell you who you are, then that's a great tragedy. Look in the mirror, figure out who you are, and then don't let anybody stop you. I mean, of course, there are people who said, you're a girl, or you're too little, or you're too young. Now it seems I've crossed that other line. Oh, maybe you can't do that. You're too old. It's an attitude that if you really want to achieve something, figure it out. Just keep on it. And so I wanted to be chief scientist on expeditions. I wanted to be in a submarine. I wanted this, I wanted that. And eventually most of the wants, not because somebody gave them to me, because I just didn't stop trying and knocking down the barriers. And so I couldn't get in the line to use the Alvin submersible. It was a very long line, and you had to have a justification for why you wanted to go. I just wanted to see what was out there. I wanted to explore. I couldn't really tell anybody exactly what I would see because nobody knew exactly but so I teamed up with engineers and we started a company and we built submarines, and we're still doing that. I'm not an engineer, but again, the human capacity to work with others, to draw on the talents of others, to team up and move forward. It's how civilization progresses. So that's a kind of a long, windy way of answering your question. Maybe I really haven't, but yeah, it's frustrating at times.
Yeah.
But if you let it get you down, you'll never get anywhere.
No, well, thank you. I think you definitely have answered it. And I think also, you've given hope to people. It doesn't matter what age you are, there's always going to be barriers, but you've just got to push back on those barriers. And I think you are a wonderful example of what that does and what you've achieved, because if you did listen to people, you'd be, you wouldn't be where you are now. No, exactly. So thank you for continuing to push and inspiring others to be the best that they can possibly be, whether male or female. So thank you.
Right on.
Well, this was oh, go ahead.
Just one quick thing about being a gender thing, that when I served as the chief scientist of NOAA, the chief lawyer, the chief attorney for NOAA came in one morning and he was just bursting with laughter because his 7-year-old son had this book. It was about Sylvia Earle, about diving, about using submarines, about living underwater, about traveling around the world and meeting all these wonderful creatures, diving with whales. And this plaintive 7-year-old voice, he said, "Dad, I mean, can little boys, can I grow up to do some of these things? Is this for girls?"
That's great. I'll have to remember that one. That's fun.
Reverse bias. Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sylvia. That was great.
Thank you. If anyone's got any questions that they want to post on Facebook, we'll definitely ask the ladies. So yes, ask away, Alex.
As we have time anyway, because there's a lot of good stuff to get through. So yeah, I guess we should probably move along and chat with some of our other amazing people here. If we can, I'd love to start or continue with Dr. Carden-Wallace. Just because everyone watching might not know a ton about each of the other people who are represented here, it would be wonderful if you could tell everybody a little bit about the incredible work that you do with corals.
Thank you. And it's lovely to be in the presence of Sylvia, Earle, and all the other wonderful people. It was 50 years ago that I started doing research on corals, and I must say that, everybody is supposed to have a conservation background, and I guess I don't fully have that, but my way of going about helping conservation right to the marine environment is to research stuff and publish it and make it available, and also as Sylvia was saying, work with lots and lots and lots of other people, so that you've then become part of a marine society, really, that is that is working together and that always has the right contact, or almost always have the right contact to get in touch with when somebody wants a piece of information. So yes, so 50 years ago, it was mostly geologists who worked on coral reefs, and you know, rather than biologists, which is a little bit strange, but it's all coming together now because everybody realizes that they need everybody else. But the first pressing need that was sort of made itself known to me when I was thinking of what to be doing on the reef was the need for an underwater guide to identifying corals, because there are all these wonderful old tomes in the museum libraries, but they didn't tell us anything about what the corals look like under the sea and how you could distinguish species. And this was in particular what ecologists and all the people that were getting into that new thing that was scuba diving to do their research. This is what they needed. They needed, you know, the basics of how to identify corals. And over the 50 or so years, the sorts of the sorts of research and the people, the biologists, geologists, and just about every other kind of professional that you can imagine, was able to, you know, what that whole global group was able to come up with in the way of information about coral reefs was quite astounding. But somehow it's never quite enough. You know, there's always a lot more to do. And every now and again, there's really, really a lot more to do because some major discovery has turned everything on its head.
And Carden, you made one of the most amazing discoveries. So along with your colleagues, you're incredibly humble. So I'm going to brag on your behalf, lovely. Along with your colleagues, you actually discovered the mass spawning on the Great Barrier Reef, which to this day, people still lose their minds about it, and is one of the most incredible things to witness, which I've had the privilege to do. I mean, did you realise what you'd actually stumbled across? Because it is just phenomenal.
Well, it took a little while to realise. I guess the first thing was that there was there was a little group of us. It was five. There were five of us, and we were at the at James Cook University in Townsville. And Townsville, for Australians, is really the best place to go if you want to work on coral reefs. We were all working on our own special animal that we were interested in, and in my case, it was the staghorn corals, because that's sort of been my adult life's desire, is to find out everything I possibly could about staghorn corals. But other people were working on brain corals, and you know, there is a very great diversity of types of coral on the reef. And so we're doing these sort of very, very particular little laboratory studies where you dissolve the skeleton of the coral and you look at the tissues and you see that there are eggs and sperm sacs developing in your coral. You know, it's very, very painstaking work, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and as the year goes on. And then suddenly we realised that each of us was looking at the same developmental thing, that everything was synchronised, that the brain corals were doing the same sort of thing as my staghorn corals. And first of all, none of us had much money, so we got together and, you know, hired a boat together to go to Magnetic Island and do research. We pooled our work mainly, you know, for two reasons. One, we were working on the same thing at the same time, and two, we didn't have enough money to do anything else. And at the end of this particular year, we found that we all had to go to Magnetic Island at the same time, which was in the late spring, and because it looked as though the eggs and the sperm were nearly ready to pop, you know. And in fact, it was on a week's field trip over on Magnetic Island that we first saw the mass coral spawning. And in fact, some of us didn't see our coral spawn because of well, the synchrony. As it turned out, you know, the synchrony wasn't quite as synchronous as we thought it would be. But you know, before we'd started that work, it was thought that corals always had larvae sitting in their polyps ready to be popped out on any day of the year. And what we had really accidentally discovered was, no, it's a very, very short period of time that they spawn for. And it's, you know, it's got a lot of links to what the moon's doing and of course, what the temperature of the water is doing. The scientists who came before us mostly came from temperate parts of the world. And their idea was that in the tropics, there's no seasons. Therefore, you know, the corals are likely, and any organism is likely to sort of keep going all year rather than to confine their reproduction to a particular part of the year. So what we had found in that first year could be then over about a 10-year period honed down to, you know, being able to predict what phase of the moon and even what day of the week our particular corals would spawn.
Well, I thank you because it was an incredible discovery that, again, every year people just are in awe when they see the egg and sperm bundles rising to the surface. It's like this, yeah, incredible. But I've got another quick question, if you don't mind, Carden, and then we'll move along. There's been a question around coral reef rehabilitation, propagation, etc. Some people have said that you know, it's a waste of money. It's just a band-aid when we're not looking at the cause of that, which is climate change. Just quickly, I'm interested to know your thoughts on that.
Yes, so my thoughts sort of go in two directions, really. I mean, it does seem to be, you know, such a drop in the ocean to try to do that. But I'm very, very much encouraged by the fact that the people doing the work, and in particular, Dr. Peter Harrison, who I've worked with, you know, all the way through. He is a very, very fine scientist and a very, very, you know, particular and person in the way that he goes about things. And, you know, I would have to say, and I'm sure he would agree, that's all at an experimental stage now, but it's definitely worth a try to see, you know, what could be done and what should be done. So that's still, it is still experimental at the moment, but I wouldn't say stop experimenting.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm sure we could talk about corals probably for the next hour, but we better not. Perhaps we'll have time to come back to all of these topics more later. We'll see what time allows for. Thank you. And I think next, let's head over to chat with Sharon. So Sharon is in Hong Kong at the moment, and I personally know her for so much of the like anti-shark fishing campaign work that she's done. And Sharon does so much. So Sharon, tell us a bit about Aqua Meridian and some of the other work that you do to kind of educate people about what's going on in our marine habitats.
Hi, everyone. It's
Hi, Sharon.
well, hi.
Wildlife is
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here, and it's a real pleasure to be here with all these lovely ladies and you, Michael. As usual, you're surrounded by lovely ladies.
It's a privilege.
Yeah. So, well, in Hong Kong, I think the whole COVID thing has made us rethink our work a lot. In the past, we have been trying very hard to do more work that would take us abroad for many reasons. Of course, chief among them would be, I just simply enjoy the traveling. And we'd like to do a lot more work, such as doing documentaries that would air throughout China and help educate about our oceans. But seeing as we've been stuck pretty much for about, nearly 2 years now, almost, in Hong Kong. So we've been planning a lot more work that's based in Hong Kong. One of the things that we'll be looking forward to doing actually has a lot to do with Sylvia and Hong Kong's marine protected areas. But we won't be talking about that today because it's going to be a bit of a surprise when it happens. We'll be doing a lot more education in Hong Kong, though. So we're doing a lot more coursework with students of all ages here in Hong Kong. In due course, I hope to actually connect and work with Sylvia and Liz in California. Somehow, long distance, we have a bunch of very smart kids here in Hong Kong who are very interested in looking into our oceans and seeing what can be done to help with the pollution and other negative factors that are affecting our seas right now. So they're looking at possibly learning how to build their own first submersible, ROVs. And other things that we'll be doing with the kids would be a bit like forensics, studying our trash, taking a cup of sand from the beach and seeing what's in it. Really looking into that and understanding the kind of stuff we're putting into our oceans so that in the long run, they're the ones that will be helping change the negative things that we've done to our oceans. It's not easy to be in their generation, I don't think, but it's been interesting watching them grow. And it continues. So just yesterday, I went and did a school talk, and it was quite funny. Now, as you can see, when I first started the conversation with you folks, I had a bird on my shoulder, which I quickly put away because she was having her morning opera session. But I do take her with me when I do school talks. And sometimes for the younger children, I would even dress up as a pirate. So this makes it very unforgettable for them. And of course, they end up wanting to play with a bird, and we talk about responsible pet ownership. But again, when dressed as a pirate in Hong Kong, I tried to maintain it being a local pirate so that I could talk to them more about Hong Kong's history, which is quite interesting, and they have a lot to do with it. So Hong Kong used to have quite a few very notorious local pirates. In fact, there's supposed to be some treasure out there that still hasn't been discovered, just in Hong Kong Islands. There was a very notorious female pirate, apparently. So starting from that history and helping them see what Hong Kong's undergone culturally. Now, we used to be sort of like the fishermen of China, so to speak. We took from the sea, and we were able to dry a lot of seafoods, and thus be able to bring it into the rest of China. So that was one of the reasons why people ended up with shark fin soup, is because people in mainland China enjoyed seafood, enjoyed the flavor, but for the stuff to get there, it had to be dried. Anyways, understanding that history and understanding that Hong Kong used to be a glorious fishing port, and then not very long ago, how we faced complete collapse of our fisheries. And we had to take drastic measures. We had to stop trawling completely for a while. And now we're watching a rebound in a number of the species that we thought were gone. So it's wonderful to see that and to bring that to the kids so that they understand that when we do conservation work, we do get some good results, because a lot of times they look at the news, everything seems so negative. And it's very hard to give them hope unless they see some positive changes from our work.
Well, with the pirate like you, I'm sure they can't possibly not have something as a positive takeaway. That seems great.
That's just good fun, but it's something they'll never forget, I hope.
That's for sure. We might have to have you do a reenactment when you're on the actual Sylvia Earle at some point. We might need to see how this works.
That could be doable. We should all do that.
Yes, I'd be up for that.
Sharon, I couldn't tell for sure whether you said pirate or parrot.
I was the pirate with the parrot.
Ahoy.
Could always
Yes.
dress the parrot up as a pirate and see what happens. I don't know.
I don't think that would go down very well. The parrot
No, I
would
don't
take
think so.
me off in 3 seconds.
Absolutely. Oh, that's great. Sharon, if people wanted to find out more about your work and ways to support it, what would they do? Where would they go?
They could simply Google us, Aqua Meridian,
Okay.
and they'll find our webpage. Thank you. But also actually supporting Sylvia and Mission Blue really does
Sharon?
also our work.
She's on the board of directors. Yay.
That's right. Quite a prestigious board of directors indeed. Well, fantastic. Sharon, thanks so much for joining us and sharing some about what you do. It's fantastic work. And Michael, who's next? Are we moving on to Asha next?
That's right, Asha. Let's have Asha.
Okay.
And the blue whales.
Asha. Wonderful. Well, perfect. Then let's hear about the blue whales from Asha. Please tell us about what you do.
Okay, yep. Blue whales are definitely my flagship species ever since I had an encounter with an aggregation and a floating pile of whale poop, which is clearly a story for another time. But that's how it all began. That was my eureka moment. So out here in Sri Lanka, my work is really focused here in Sri Lanka. We do marine conservation research and education. And I think a little context is necessary. When I told people at the age of 18 that I wanted to be a marine biologist, Sri Lankans were unclear what I was going to do with this degree. And so I said, okay, I'll carve my own niche. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew I had to just stay positive and optimistic that I could do something. I mean, it's an island. It's a beautiful tropical island. We have 8 times more ocean area than land area. And the fact that people didn't know, what a marine biologist would do in the country is very telling. I'm not much older than 18. I just want to put that out there. But the point being, it was very recent. So this has changed a lot of mindsets, just my work. So it wasn't, it was coming into the fray in a field that didn't exist, that lots of people thought was a man's job, and just sort of persisting, as Sylvia said, just keep going. And I mean, I definitely kept going. So my work has been very focused on Sri Lanka because I'm determined for people to see Sri Lanka as this, for what it is in terms of our marine environment. We have a lot of amazing things. We have the largest baleen whale, the blue whale, we have the largest tooth whale. So I work on both species. We have these long-term projects like the Sri Lankan Blue Whale Project, where our primary concern is that they get hit by ships and get killed. So we've been working on policy level with international organizations, with our research to try to show people that, there are ways to resolve the problem. We work with sperm whales to try to understand how to protect them better and their cultures better. And that's like a key thing that we don't think about, is every population has their own culture, and that's really important for us to preserve. So we work a lot on that. We work with shark fisheries. So our work is not just about working with species or ecosystems. 99% of conservation is really working with people. And so we work with small scale fisher people. We had an urgent project last year. As soon as we had the lockdowns, we basically launched into a project to understand how the lockdowns as a result of COVID affected our small scale fishing communities, because it was really important for us to consider what they were going through to understand how they would weather this storm. And then another very immediate project that we're working on right now is, I don't know how many of you have heard, but we've had the biggest, marine disaster of our history on our coastline. Now, being one of the only very independent marine biologists in the country, because I don't work for a government authority, I am very scientifically driven, and having the work recognized in spaces like this is actually really helpful to making sure that people understand that, we will produce the best quality science. And so I've been basically at the front line of that, trying to advise the government, trying to, facing the international media, working with my collaborators across the world to kind of get the best science in terms of the pellets that have spilled, in terms of tracking them, but building also citizen science opportunities for people to kind of contribute to the work that's being done, from tracking these nurdles to understanding concentrations of them, hotspots. So there's a whole range of that stuff that we do, but then we also translate all our work into, we do education and outreach, because marine literacy is basically next to nothing in countries like mine. I mean, traditionally, our ocean is a place of extraction versus a place of protection or recreation. And that's understandable because it was a livelihood. It's a space of it's an economic activity. And so that's had to change on its head. And so a lot of the work that I do also is to make sure that what we do is just not filed away in shelves, but we're actually taking this information out of the public. So a lot of speaking, public talk, social media, very, very active on everything, even with this ship disaster. I mean, we're very active at making sure that everyone is abreast of what's going on. So the work spans a lot of things. I mean, my first love are blue whales, but of course they live in a very interconnected ecosystem, and all these components are incredibly important to consider, to protect, to engage with if we want to protect this species. And we can't protect something in isolation of anything else. So I will say that I definitely have a lot of work cut out for myself. And, one of our main things is also engaging with people of all ages. So we run, science journal clubs for the public. We have bakers and accountants and business people just joining us to study and research, to read scientific articles and discuss. But we also have a one for younger kids, under 15-year-olds, where we do a very similar thing, but we use videos and have discussions around that. We basically have, and also, you can't study to be a marine biologist in Sri Lanka. So that's still at dearth in terms of university level. So we're building, online courses. So my goal is to make sure that people realize that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And I want to make sure that everyone has opportunities. So my job is purely to create these opportunities, open doors, because I truly believe that the solution to our next greatest ocean challenge is trapped in the mind of someone from the global south or the developing world. And I'm going to make sure I help find that person.
Wow, that's great. You're like this octopus with your tentacles everywhere and extending your reach, which I absolutely love. And, the little girl, or not even the little girl, the big girl inside of me is like, you get to research one of the most amazing creatures on the planet. I would have been you when I grew up. So congratulations. But quickly, I just want to finish on this quick question. Obviously, your name in Sanskrit, so Asha, means hope. So my last question quickly is, how do you keep this hope, and how do you give others hope when at times the challenges can seem so overwhelming and daunting?
Okay, that's a really great question. And yes, that's a top tip. I was named Asha because in Sanskrit, well, it sounds good, but it also in Sanskrit, it means hope, right? So when people say, are you hopeful? I say, well, I was born hopeful. I have no choice, right? So that's very convenient. I am hopeful, but I don't think hope is the only thing that's going to carry us through. We need hope and action. We need hope and courage, right? And that's really important for people to remember. So I want people to have hope, to believe what's possible. It makes me sad sometimes, like, for example, with this ship disaster, I'm learning a hell of a lot of things, including the fact that, for years, like people like myself have been talking about these problems, with ship disasters, with pollution, with acoustic pollution, all these elements, but it has taken an absolute disaster for people to wake up, right? So we live in this very reactive society. We don't live in a proactive society, and that needs to change. And that's sort of what I'm trying to kind of do by going into the education systems, both in the school level, but also at the older levels. Because if people are learning about these things as they go through their lives, it becomes second nature. And so then you don't react because you're already ready. You're already looking out to try to prevent. And I think that's really important. So I see that, because today I'll tell you, there's more people. I mean, I started when nobody wanted to be a marine biologist or didn't know what a marine biologist was. And today there's more kids than ever before in our history wanting to go in this field. Every day I'll get messages from students right across my island, but also within this region, writing and saying, how do I do what you do? Right. And to me, it's a huge responsibility, which is why I go crazy with creating opportunities. But it's so heartening, right? It means that there are people who believe in it. And, 70% of our coastlines are in the developing world, but representation on the global stage is very disproportional. And that needs to change, because as Sylvia says, we need everybody, right? We need a diversity of people on board, and a handful of people from the developed world can't resolve all the problems of our oceans. So we need a massive team. And where are we going to get that team if we're not investing in them, right? So my work is really about building equal partnerships with people from across the world to help to build the capacity and the talent, and find that in our parts, in that 70% in the developing world, so we can make sure there's empowered people looking after their own coastlines. Because honestly, and I'm very hopeful, because I can see it happening, and I have great people who work with me, and I see these young people just dying and yearning to do so much, right? Just get involved and want to do it right, which is also fantastic. But in the end, I believe that if we truly want to save our oceans, every coastline needs a local hero. And my goal is to make sure that happens.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you.
Yes. I know this is a panel full of extremely powerful people, and I'm loving this. So let's have a chat with Bernadette next. Hi, thank you so much for joining us. So you're coming to us from Alaska right now, and your work is centered around protecting the wildlife refuge there, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which is one of the most incredible places probably on the planet. So please tell us a little bit about your work and your connection to this beautiful place.
I'd like to recognize and acknowledge that I'm on the ancestral homelands of the Dena'ina people. And I'm the executive director of the Gwich'in Steering Committee, founded in 1988 by the chiefs and elders of the Gwich'in Nation of Alaska and Canada. And our mission is to protect the Ejiklatsan Gondai Gotlit. Everyone else knows it as the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. This place has been sacred to the Gwich'in people since time immemorial. Our creation story tells us there was a time that we were able to communicate with the caribou, and we made a vow to take care of each other. If you look at the migratory route, which is this is the last land mammals on the planet that travel this distance. If you look at the migratory route and the Gwich'in communities, they're identical. Our ancestors settled us so that we can continue to live and thrive off of the caribou. We have been going to Congress for since 1988. Maybe before that, my elders were doing it. They snuck it into a tax act that it had nothing to do with. And they opened their sacred lands to oil and gas development. The Gwich'in are hard-headed. We will not allow people to come into our homelands and, destroy it. We have been going to the United Nations, who sided with the Gwich'in. We're still going to Congress. This is not a done deal. It is law now, but not every law they make is a correct one, right? I mean, there's a lot of past history that wasn't the right things to do. So we continue to educate the world. In 1988 was the first gathering that was held by the Gwich'in in over 150 years. And at that gathering, our elders directed us to go out and tell the world that we are here, to do the work in a good way and not to compromise our position. That do it in a good way, that's a very simple sentence, especially when you're up against so much dishonesty and misleading statements from your own Congress or your own administration. But we have always had a spiritual and cultural connection to the porcupine caribou herd. And we will stand strong in unity and solidarity with everybody from around the world. And over 70% of Americans that oppose development in the Arctic refuge. I'm sorry, this gets a little emotional once in a while when I'm sharing the things that are happening in Alaska that our elected leadership is not sharing, such as dead fish in our lakes and our rivers, thousands, dead birds literally falling from the sky from starvation. We have 33 coastal communities eroding into the ocean, record-breaking fires, and an elected leadership that refuses to acknowledge that we are dealing with climate change. We do not only feel attacked by our government, but not by climate change, but we feel attacked by our government. The last administration totally disregarded any of our concerns, which were very valid. And they just dismissed us altogether. But like I said, we refuse to accept this development in our sacred land. It's called the sacred place where life begins. That is what it's called in our language. As Gwich'in people, we have always protected this place. It just didn't happen in 1988. It goes back to since the beginning of time. And I don't consider myself an activist or environmentalist. I'm just a mother. I'm a grandmother, trying to protect my children's birthright so that they have a place in their homelands in the future, which I'm very concerned about. I believe that climate change does not care what color we are. If we're red, black, brown, yellow, we are all going to be negatively impacted if we're rich or poor. And it's time that we stick our differences aside and start coming together. We can't stop climate change, but we can prepare our future generations for what's to come. We can slow down and we can get off fossil fuels. Alaska right now is thawing 3 times the rate as the rest of the world. And we are firsthand seeing it, and it's very scary. I have 6 grandchildren, and that's why I refuse to give up. Giving up is not an option. And this is not a 9-to-5 job for me. This is always on my mind. This is, what can I do next? What else can I do? And I believe that us coming together, and this is such an amazing start. Thank you for even, I was really honored, surprised, shocked, but honored. And I just want to say briefly that just because I'm here, it doesn't make my voice more important. I have the entire Gwich'in nation that I speak for, Alaskans, and all the voiceless, the animals, especially, that cannot tell us that we are hurting their habitat, that we are hurting them. And I'm just going to continue to use my voice because I believe that's one of the most powerful tools that you have. Stand up, even if you have to stand alone.
Absolutely. And your voice is incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. And, I thank you. And how can we help add power to that? How can we help if we're not in Alaska, we're in Melbourne or Japan? What can we do to support what you're doing and your efforts?
Well, we have our website. A lot of people are getting it mixed up with the Gwich'in Steering Committee website. It's ourarcticrefuge.org. You can always go on there. We are asking people to continue to write to the UN. If you're an American, write to Congress, your congressmen, congresswomen. We are right now in the process of, they stopped lease sales. we're hoping that they reverse the law. We're going to continue to do that. Share our story, you know, learn more about we are spiritually and culturally connected to these animals, but we are not only connected to them, but we are connected to the land, to the water, and it's this interconnection. If the caribou go, we go. That is a quote from Jonathan Solomon. What befalls the caribou befalls the Gwich'in. And they are the foundation of our songs, stories, and dances. And we are going to fight every step of the way to protect their habitat and to protect the nursing and calving grounds.
Thank you, Bernadette. We'll make sure that we put links to everyone's web pages and causes and things like that. So keep up the fight, Bernadette, and yeah, I think everyone will support you in any way that we possibly can.
Absolutely.
So
Bernadette,
thank you.
we want you to know that your part of the war is very, close to our heart, and we'll do everything to get the message out. So yes, we'll talk to you again and how we can help to share your message. Thank you.
Merci, ciao.
Well, there were 2 more women that were not able to join us live tonight. So we did a little bit of recording earlier in the day, today and late last night, to make sure that you could still hear from them. So you're going to be hearing from Joanna Ruxton, who created the film Plastic Ocean, and then from Hanley, who's an incredible world record holding freediver who has a nonprofit in South Africa. So have a look at what they both have to say, and then we'll see what else we've got time for.
Alexa, can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, I'm going to put on that right now. Hang on a second.
So everyone, we would love for you to meet Jo Ruxton. You may already know her from her work with A Plastic Ocean, but if you happen not to, could you tell us a bit about Plastic Ocean?
So Plastic Ocean was a film project that I started working on in 2009. I'd spent many years working at the BBC doing underwater documentaries. And in fact, the first one I did was, first one I worked on was a series called Blue Planet. And whilst it was incredible working on such a breakthrough ocean series, I felt all the time that we weren't really telling the truth about the ocean. And I wanted to get that truth put out there, but was constantly told, oh no, people just want to be entertained. They don't want bad news. And I didn't really feel that we were giving our audience the credit that they deserved. My previous job had been working for WWF, and I was based in Hong Kong and helped to set up the first marine protected areas there. And my heart was in conservation, and I found it very hard to sort of not tell the truth in what we were showing. And for the next 12 years, I carried on doing films. I ended up working on 4 shark films. And with each one, I wanted to get the message in about the decimation of shark populations, about finning, but it was always, no, people want to know about sharks and just not the bad stuff. And it started to get to me. So when the BBC started offering voluntary redundancies, I had a real think about it. And I went to our HR department and had a couple of interviews. And at both, I was told that I wouldn't get any higher than producer, not because people weren't happy with my work, but simply because I was an older woman. And that was kind of the trigger I needed to think, right, I'm going to go anyway. And just as I did, the world went into global recession, and there's me just starting a charity and trying to make a new film. But I persevered because I kept finding out more and more about the problem of plastic in the ocean. And when I started off, I thought it was about this so-called island of plastic. I thought that the whole story was going to be about the damage that it was doing to wildlife and what an eyesore it was in the environment. But the first thing I did was to join a scientific expedition going out to the center of the North Pacific, realized that there wasn't a big floating island, that in fact what we found was far more insidious because it was plankton-sized pieces, and the fish were eating them, and the tiny creatures were eating them. So this was something that was getting into the food chain at the lowest level. But I also heard about the chemicals that are released from plastic when they're eaten by predators, and how they're stored in their fatty tissues. And these same chemicals, how they've been linked to all kinds of critical disease. And suddenly everything seemed much more important. And I wanted to have a charity that would keep the legacy of the film going through education and awareness. And so it was a long old process, because the fundraising was very difficult because of what had happened, and we were kind of fundraising as we went along, so that's why it took 8 years, but eventually it did come out. And what was wonderful was the way it was received. I think it made people realize that actually people do want to know, and with something like plastic, it's not a difficult one to understand. It's or to feel involved with. I mean, yes, people obviously would understand, but sometimes we feel overwhelmed by the problems that we have in the ocean. But with plastic, it's just this kind of mindset that we've been taught growing up, that plastic's disposable. And, you know, plastic was designed to never break down. It doesn't decompose naturally. And yet we're making all these single-use items out of it. So it was an easy message to get across. But when you add into that charismatic wildlife like blue whales, and then you show what's happening to seabird chicks and turtles, and you know, so it goes on, then there's a lot more empathy, and people really want to do something. And of course everybody can, and that was the beauty of it. Every single person can make a little change, and if many people make small changes, it's almost, well, it probably is more effective than one person going completely plastic free.
Absolutely. No, it's just the messaging in the film and the imagery. It's just really, it's a fantastic piece. I've told so many people that they needed to watch it, and I've not seen any better communicated piece, and I love it. So thank you for making it.
I can't say it was a pleasure, but thank you. It's a pleasure to hear you say that.
I think it's the messaging in it has made a difference to so many people just because of the way it's presented. So yeah, it's important to make. So that's great. And I'm sure you've continued more of this work. What have you been doing since Plastic Ocean?
Well, certainly there's been an awful lot to do, and education has been a huge part of what we do. And talking education, not just in schools, obviously there's the formal side of it, but also with corporations and businesses and the general public. So a lot of my role has actually been speaking events and meeting with people directly, and fielding questions, and just continuing that message. But we've got to a stage now where a lot of people are actually on board with the plastic thing. And our original aim was to get this taught in schools, was to get legislation changed, was to get the producers and the consumers doing something about it, so that there was a lot more choice. And we've gone from a stage where, I mean, at the beginning, we couldn't even get any green groups to join us. It was very much, oh, well, we're cleaning beaches. You know, we do that 3 times a year. And cleaning beaches is great because it stops the, you know, the final stages, but it's never gonna work if you don't prevent it at source. But what's happened now is so many other green groups, even the big ones, have then got a, you know, plastics department, which is fantastic. And what we want to do now is go on to other ocean issues. And I'm in the process, well, I say in the process of making another film. I'm in the process of fundraising for another film. I do pick my times, don't I?
Yeah, really.
But I'll get there. I'm sure I will. I've just got to find some lovely philanthropists. And
they're out there.
It's an interesting time to be raising funds for a film, but also we've rebranded now, and we are now Ocean Generation. And what we're looking at is a future where the ocean is free from human threats. And it's very much an inclusive movement, and we are building all of our work on science, because it has to be evidence-based. And we are storytellers, and that's sort of what got us into this, and we will continue to do so.
That sounds fantastic. What sort of surrounding this new project, what is your vision for it? Like, what is your vision for the next maybe 20 years of our ocean's future?
If I talk about my personal vision,
Yeah.
it probably gives you an idea of what I want. I've been very lucky in my life. I was a Royal Air Force child, and it meant living in a lot of places around the world. I'm currently on my 39th address in 5 countries.
Impressive.
But a lot of the time I was living on islands, and I'm not talking about the one I'm on now, the big one I'm on now. I'm talking about little islands. And so, in Asia, in the Mediterranean, even in the UK, we were on the Isle of Wight. It was always this proximity to the ocean. And as somebody who studied marine biology, who's been diving for many years, I'm a open water swimmer here. So I'm in the sea right through the winter in Cornwall. I just feel it's part of my DNA. And I've got 2 daughters and 4 granddaughters, all who live nearby, and we are always on the beach. And my wish and my hope and my vision is that the ocean in my granddaughter's future is like the ocean of my past.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of changes since I started diving, and goodness knows what Sylvia has seen. But I think it's been accelerated probably in the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel I'm full of hope. I think things will change. I think people just need to know. And that's why I hope that, if any of them goes on to work in ocean conservation, that they will be just as passionate about it, because it's still so beautiful and they know what they can do.
That's great. It's all messages of hope are so needed, and you hear them far too frequently, I think. So
Yes.
this is good. And now with this new vessel, it's very exciting. How does it feel to have a floor of a ship named after you?
It's like a dream, honestly. I every now and then I have a little look at the the information about it. I think, gosh, it is the biggest honor. Honestly, it's the biggest honor. And Sylvia has been a heroine of mine. Since I was growing up and started looking at ocean things. She was there. She was the person doing it, and I never dreamed I'd meet her, let alone have a deck on her ship named after me. So it's fantastic, and I'm so grateful. When I think of all the people you could have had, and you picked me, it was incredible.
So exciting.
Thank you to everyone.
For sure. It's going to be amazing, and we're very excited about it.
I can't wait.
Us either. I know we can't wait for 2023 Antarctica expedition. It's going to be incredible. So, well, I guess let's just close out with what would be one thing, if you could tell people one thing to encourage them to do to help protect our seas. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to learn as much as they can about the ocean, to realize just how connected we are, that you can't even breathe without it. Start to study it, start to respect it, and then the caring will come naturally, because you'll realize what's at stake, and you'll realize what each person can do to protect it in the future. Just understand you have a voice, your actions will be important, and we can't live without a healthy ocean.
Well, hello, everybody. You are going to be joining us today with Hanley Prinsloo. Thank you so much for being with us to chat about all the wonderful work you do. So in case anyone is unfamiliar with who you are and what you do, please tell us about your nonprofit and a bit about your history.
Sure. My background is in competitive freediving. So I spent many years of my life diving as deep, as far, and as long as possible on one single breath of air. This gave me the opportunity both to get to know my body and my connection to the ocean, but also gave me the opportunity to travel around the world and really see the beauty of our oceans. And once you experience our ocean the way I have, when you hold your breath and you're underwater and you connect with whales and dolphins and seals and sharks and everything beautiful under the water, you can't but want to protect it. And I think for me, a big realization was that many people don't have this opportunity to see what's in the ocean. And here in South Africa, where I am, because of our political past, beaches, swimming pools, many water spaces were whites only for generations. And so we have this backlog of people who don't have access to the ocean. And so this was really for me the momentum to starting I Am Water Ocean Conservation. And the name I Am Water is very much around the inclusion, that we are all water. We all have a right to be in the ocean, and that our bodies are the same amount of water as our planet is, right? It's amazing. So I started I Am Water as a vessel to create ocean opportunities for others. And today here in South Africa, we work with thousands of children every year, where we work directly with the schools, bring the children to the beach, teach them about the ocean, take them snorkeling, rocky shore exploration, beach cleanups, do some mindfulness and yoga stretching with them, and really get them to understand their role in protecting the ocean, but also that the ocean is a place for them and overcoming those fears. So yeah, for me, it very much was a journey of my own freediving experiences, and then leading that into starting I Am Water to share those experiences with others.
That's really wonderful. That must be such a rewarding experience to be able to have. If you had to guess, how many kids do you think have been through this program?
I think we're over 6,000 now.
Wow, that is amazing. Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's some really incredible work.
It's exciting. And, you know, it's exciting to think of the thousands we've done, but what gets us out of bed every morning is to think of the tens of thousands who we want to work with moving forwards.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. So what kind of is your plan moving forward? Are there going to be more programs, expansions of programs? Like, what do you have going on?
Yeah, we've got lots of exciting ideas, seeing how we can make the ocean literacy programs we work with more accessible. So we're working with curriculums for the schools in South Africa. We're working with open sourcing our methodology to be able to train other organizations around the world who want to deliver the kind of work we do. Yeah, and then just more of the same here in South Africa. The Department of Education said to us, you know, we're great. It's great that you're working with so many schools. Can you work with all of them? So it really is a matter for us of more and more, and also smarter, to see how we can amplify our work.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing. Working with so many kids, I mean, you're very much connected to what the future of our planet is going to look like. So from your perspective, how does the work that you do impact what our ocean's futures are going to look like?
I think we definitely at a crunch time right now for our oceans, that there is so much left to protect, but we have to act now. And I think that really, for me, is one of the great messages that Sylvia Earle brings in a lot of what she speaks of, you know, and just with her having dived the ocean for so much longer than I have, I respect so much her vision of this and her words on this topic. And the reality is exactly that. We know more now than we've ever known. And so we know better, and we have to do better. And I think that the future of our oceans is what we make it in the next few years. That really is the reality. I mean, we can't predict or guess, because we're not on our way to a very good outcome if we were to guess the status quo. But I do think that there is a groundswell happening of awareness and of people rallying together and working together to create change. So I'm personally an optimist, and the days where I lose my optimism, I just have to get in the water, and then I get back to being an optimist. But I'm also an optimist with my feet firmly planted on the ground, and the future of our oceans will be decided in the next few years.
Absolutely. And that's always been one of the most inspiring things to me about Sylvia, is that she's just always so hopeful. And considering all she's seen, it's pretty wonderful.
Absolutely.
And speaking of that, how does it feel to have your name connected with this amazing new vessel?
Oh, it's such a thrilling opportunity to be involved. It really is. I mean, the women who are part of the whole Sylvia Earle vessel and project and the ethos behind it are all many close friends of mine, and others real inspirations. So I feel incredibly honored, and I also feel really vitalized by it. You know, it's amazing when you get given this kind of opportunity to say, yeah, we see you, we see what you're doing. It makes one want to do more, right? So I'm very excited to be a part of this, for sure.
That's pretty amazing. Well, then I guess to close out, if you could tell people or encourage people to do one major thing to kind of help protect our oceans and our planet, what would it be?
One major thing to protect our oceans. you know, the challenges facing our oceans at the moment are so many that the one thing that I would really encourage people to do is to care even more, is to not shy away from keeping their hearts open and shy away from caring, because it's when we start feeling anxiety and hopelessness about the state of the planet and our oceans, that's when the bad things win, right? So I think the one thing I would say is to keep caring, and in that caring, let it infiltrate your very action. Because if we care deeply, then our daily actions will change. You know, whether it's what we eat, you know, like not eating the kind of seafood that's unsustainable, what we buy, not buying the kind of fast fashion that has such a negative impact on climate and cannot be in any way brought into a circular economy. How we travel, if we travel, when we travel again, you know, making all those choices that are better. And they're not always the easiest choices, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. And it doesn't mean one has to have a very deep pocket or a real like 100% activist streak. It's just caring enough to let small actions become more and more and more, and suddenly it becomes second nature. So the one thing I would say is to dare to care.
I love that. That's perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And we look forward to hopefully all seeing everyone together on this ship sometime in the fairly near future.
Absolutely. I can't wait.
iMotor's vision is to connect coastal communities to the ocean so they can fall in love with it and thus protect it.
I'm feeling totally nervous today. I'm scared of the water.
On our Ocean Guardians workshops, we have grade 7 students from local schools come to the beach and learn about their oceans. The workshop consists of 2 days. The first day, the experiences are had at a beautiful local tidal pool. On the second day, we bring them to one of our incredible pristine marine protected area beaches.
These ocean conservation workshops are important to the kids in our community. Some of them don't really come out of good homes, some of them can't even swim. So to bring them out a little bit of their comfort zone gives them that confidence to show them that they can actually do anything that they want to do.
The Ocean Guardians workshops have 3 stations. We do rocky shores exploration, a beach cleanup and a snorkel station.
Our goal is that whoever was afraid, whoever had that fear comes out with love and want to teach more people that everyone can overcome these fears.
It was the first time for me to snorkel. The ladies spent more time with me. Now I know how to float. I absolutely want to do it again.
We had a lovely time and the seaweed it came on your dinner again, bang. But I did love it. And thank you for everything.
If anyone's got any questions that they would like to ask, I think, yeah, now is a good time. Maybe Carden, I'm interested quickly just to go back to you. If you could tell the younger Carden and have any message to the younger Carden, what would that be? I just got to get you. Oh, just got to get you off mute, Carden. Thanks, lovely. Now, what would you tell your younger self?
I think it would just be something like stick with it, because, you know, a lot of the stories that I've heard from the women today are my story too, you know, that forget the fact that people don't want to employ women or, you know, all the sorts of negative things, and just go for what you want to do. And I think I would say that to myself again. And I think I'd say to my mother, thank you for giving me a name that sounds a bit like a men's name. And Therefore, you get to the interview with a name like that, and then it's up to you to prove yourself.
Well, that's fantastic. Michael, are you sorted on your end?
Just move on. Just move on. We got 15 minutes left. Go on. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
10
All
minutes,
right.
10 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say we're unfortunately getting close on time, and we haven't really spent any time talking about the actual expedition yet. So I'm hoping that Sylvia and Monique can kind of both fill us in on a bit more about the 2023 Antarctic expedition, what we have to look forward to, and a bit about the ship, because it really is state of the art. So yeah, go for it.
Monique, please take us away.
Okay, thank you so much. We're just putting our toe in the water today because we're not officially launching anything, but one could allude to the fact that we are now doing have a beautiful plan in place for a very, very special voyage in Antarctica, together with Sylvia, Earle, and to say we're excited is an understatement. We're forming it now and working obviously very closely with Michael and his team. The ship is beautiful. There is a lot of care in, and we've just finished all of our beautiful decks. And thanks to the women here today and the two women that aren't, thank you so much for your wonderful time that you've devoted to bringing your stories to life. And we've now been able to create these stories and bring them to life on board the ship. And that is just such an honour for us. There was one time I remember speaking to Sylvia Earle, and she said, look, we love to make the people that go on our voyages ambassadors of the places that they visit. And she said, yes, but the ship has to also be an ambassador. And it really got us thinking. And that's why we're really now looking at beautiful ways to do things like participative science programs with our guests and bringing it to life. So is there a special voyage coming up? Yes, there is. And it's coming soon. So we will be launching very shortly, but to say it's going to be a very, very exciting event, yeah, it's special.
Absolutely. And to such a special place. I know, Sylvia, I would love to hear your thoughts, of course, on the Antarctic. It's such a unique place, in such a hard to reach place, yet it's impacted by so many people and so many nations all over the world. What do you see as the future for the Antarctic region, or at least what would you like it to be?
Are you speaking to me?
I am indeed, ma'am.
Well, I'm mindful, as everyone else here should be too, that the continent of Antarctica was first glimpsed about 200 years ago. And it's amazing that people around the world have basically come together, starting in the middle of the 20th century, to say, we're going to maintain this whole continent, safeguard this place where there will be no commercial activity for research and exploration, but we're not going to treat this whole part of the world with a different kind of respect. And that was such a breakthrough, but somehow they forgot about the ocean. The ocean, well, the land still is largely intact. There maybe at any one time, maybe 1,000 people on the land now living mostly at the research station, maybe a few more in the most active part of the season, the summer season. But in the winter, our summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, things shut down a bit, except for the animals. They're still there. And underwater, the temperature doesn't change much. It's cold. It's cold all the time. In fact, most of life on Earth lives in the cold and in the dark all of the time. Because when you get below 100 meters or so, it's cold, even in the tropics. It gets really cold when you get down to 1,000 meters, and colder still at 2,000 meters. But at the bottom, it's not freezing, because if it were, it would turn to ice, and then ice would make its way up to the surface. And of course, that's what does happen in polar regions. When the water gets cold enough to freeze, it floats. And I think the awareness of the diversity and abundance and the importance of life in polar regions has not yet really sunk in, even among many scientists. But it's getting there. The importance of krill alive, not turned into krill oil or krill paste or fish meal to be used as food for cows and pigs and chickens and other fish for aquaculture. The importance of life in the Southern Ocean, as it's now referred to, as it relates to climate. It's the carbon cycle. I want to say in big headlines, it's the carbon cycle, stupid. We have to not only see what's going on in the atmosphere, but trees were begun to respect how they capture carbon and sequester it, but the forests of the ocean that power the food chains, photosynthesis, phytoplankton powering zooplankton, including krill, that go on to feed the little fish, the squid, and the big fish, and the whales, and all the other creatures of the sea, and sometimes humans as well. It's the carbon that gets transferred from the atmosphere into life in the ocean and sequestered there. The rich currents that arise off of South Africa, the rich layers of nutrient-rich waters in the deep sea. Much of that originates in Antarctica during this intensely productive summer months, when the water that in the winter months is clear, but in the summer, you can barely see your hand in front of your face because there's just so much life. And that sinks to the ocean floor, is carried on bottom currents all over the world. This big, we call it the conveyor belt of currents from surface waters down through the deep sea. And the nutrients are passed from species to species, individual to individual, collectively, these amazing swarms of life in Antarctic waters that ultimately power life throughout the world. And the cycle goes round and round, except we have come along in my lifetime, in your lifetime, cutting those cycles, extracting huge quantities of life out of the ocean. Even before the first sighting of the Antarctic continent, in the subantarctic islands, when they were discovered, the abundance of seals and sea lions and birds attracted commerce, so that for a while it was just slaughter of the seals. And when their numbers declined so that it became less profitable, the action turned to the penguins and the other seabirds, even boiling them for oil and use of their feathers. And starting in the 50s, the idea that their numbers were at such perilously low numbers, protection came into place. But that was only after whales had also been discovered and brought down to perilously low numbers. But the killing of whales in Antarctica continued through, the 1980s. The commercial whaling stopped, except a few nations, notably Japan, continued to take whales from Antarctic waters. It's only very recently that they have stopped taking whales in Antarctica. And what do we have? What do we have left with the depletion of seals, birds, sea lions? Okay, next on the list, krill, starting in the 1980s. Large-scale extraction of krill, ice fish, the so-called Chilean sea bass, and that continues to to the present time, even though with some regulation scaled to try to maintain some level of sustained take, instead of looking at these systems for their highest and best value as living systems, we still have this mindset. It's a carryover from habits of the past when the world was a different place. We can't afford to continue killing wildlife on the scale that we are continuing to impose in Antarctic waters. So, this expedition, shine the light on the value of live Antarctica. Shine the light, carry the message. The krill cannot speak for themselves. The whales can't speak at the places where decisions are made about their fate. We have to be ambassadors for them and show why keeping them alive is vital, not just for them, but for us. If it's not obvious to others, we have to sort of spell it out. Here's why we have to keep the fish in Antarctica in the ocean as their most valuable role, part of the ecosystem. I mean, I think it's okay if whales eat the fish, if whales eat the krill. That's part of the nutrient cycle that's been developing over really millions of years. We are newcomers, disrupting and destroying these systems, and it does come back in terms of relationship to climate, to the weather, to the diversity of life, to a planet that works in our favor. So my goal for this 2023 expedition is to try to bring people who need to have a magnified influence on the fate of climate, on the fate of Antarctica, on the fate of life in the sea, on the fate of humankind as it relates to the natural world, to get those who command respect around the world, people who have the credibility and in some cases the authority to act. And I think it's important to bring some kids on this 2023 expedition and really engage them in ways that will make them powerful ambassadors, that their voices will be listened to in ways that maybe mine or yours might not. Kids have a way of getting the attention of the adults around them in ways that I think matter. I mean, it does matter. It's their future on the line. So let's give them a chance to soak it up, understand from experience that they can then share with others. I'd love your thoughts, all of you, about how you think an expedition to Antarctica can really draw attention to the urgency effectively and make this a turning point in how people regard the value of the Antarctic ecosystems and who you think might be the right people to enlist to be part of the action.
Thank you.
I think we will definitely need to have a follow-up with everyone. Maybe we should try to get everyone together again at some point and just discuss that specifically, kind of get everyone's take on it and build on that. I think that would be great. We'll have to do that. That's next.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you so much for that. For anyone that want to get more interest in this expedition, look up on this space. We will announce it soon and how to apply to come on board with us. I'd like to take this time to thank everybody here, Asher, Bernadette, Sharon, Dr. Sylvia, Earle, Dr. Karen Wallace. Thank you so much for this conversation. I think we leave here with 2 words. I think hope. We must have hope and dreams, and dreams do come true. So find out more about this expedition and find out how we can interact with these heroes of the Sylvia Earle in the forthcoming edition of Ocean Geographic, and also in the Watch This Space. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Monique. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
More soon.
Thank you.